5 o'clock. We got roll call.
Okay, welcome everybody and happy equinox. Which is great. All right, so we'll do roll call. Miranda, present. Deanna Burton.
Yep.
Mike Preston.
Yep.
Jeannie Rose is excused tonight. Laura Unicky.
Present.
Diana Kessler.
Here.
Michael Mangini.
Here.
Judy Nelson.
Here.
Jim Parks. Aaron. And Rose Coates. Here. Okay, we have a quorum.
Super. Well, we do not have anyone else online.
Not yet.
Yep. Oh, sure.
Okay, so tonight's agenda, we have one chapter to look at tonight, and then I did have a question for everybody about the schedule. We have a meeting that is scheduled for next Thursday, the 27th. And I'm wondering if we could change that to April 3rd, the following Thursday. We're not ready to. Would that be okay? Does anybody have a conflict with that?
I'll just have to be on lunch.
Okay. Thanks.
Next Thursday.
Right, it's a week, 2 weeks from tonight.
Easier for me.
Okay.
Two back to back for me.
True, you don't have to plan
Yeah.
for it. Well, thank you, I appreciate that. And so then, let me see, I have another question for you. And I did have one question based on, what you see here then. So we can reschedule for next week, but I wanted to ask you, we didn't plan for a re-review of the comments that you made for the last chapter, which was community services and public safety. And then we don't have a re-review date for tonight's topic, resilient economies and housing. So I wanted to ask you about that. If you feel like that's necessary, if we could do it over email, what would your preference be? Not wanting to drag the meetings out too much, but wanting to make sure that you're comfortable with where we're heading on the edits. So that is a question.
Well, I met Jim in Safeway, and he said last week or something, he said, I hope we look at all of this sometime. So I would assume that we need to look at it either email or not.
Or can we just do something for the first meeting for any additionals?
Just remind everybody to speak up a little bit. Yeah, so solely remote.
I just think because this is not. I don't feel that I would bear the full time.
We can do whatever works for everybody. You know, we could do it by a remote email or, the idea would be, we are gonna package it all together in one, draft for the 60-day public review. So, that will go out, and if you all would maybe want to wait and look at that all together before we start 60-day review, that's another option. It's kind of your choice here, as to how many more meetings you'd like to have. I mean, I actually, that might be a good use of your time, is if we put it all together, after the 3rd, and then have you look at it as a package, before we start 60-day review, instead of splitting it up again. But whatever your comfort level is, we can make.
So just a question, not meet on April 3rd, but need to put it on and on the week.
I do recommend meeting April 3rd, because that would be looking at the appendices, the glossary, and importantly, the implementation plan. Because we would like you to do a little exercise then and help us write the implementation strategies that you've been looking at all along. So that would be that's an important separate, hopefully fun meeting.
Do you have a thought about how you feel?
Well, mostly has to do with timing, because this is purely a personal thing, but because of some planned surgery for my husband. I'm not really available for the meeting after about the 15th of April. Maybe not even online meeting. So I would love it if we were all done meeting, reviewing things by the 15th or so, but that's just one person. And I'm always happy to review and send comments in if we wind up with your full package sometime after that.
What day is the 15th?
I think that would be Tuesday.
Is it possible to meet on this, like a Saturday? Because I think then we're all fresh and we're not like chatting.
We can make that happen. It's up to you guys. Saturday morning, you can do it. Oh, somebody's online.
Is it gonna be okay? I don't know what else to do. I don't wanna.
Hello, can you,
Hi, could you identify yourself, please?
yeah, this is Jim Parks and I'm trying to do this on my phone because we're trying to get the Teams to work and we can't seem to make the passcode go through.
Well, we can hear you. So you're in the meeting.
Okay, well, we'll keep trying on the Teams and try to make contact that way too. Okay, evidently we've got
Jim,
something going here.
If two of you in the same room are joining the meeting at the same time, you're going to get that echo.
I'm gonna turn the phone off.
Okay, so just test your microphone on the other device. Unmute yourself. Jim, can you hear us? Jim, can you hear us?
We can see you.
Oh, Jim, I see you.
We have to get their microphone.
Here, yeah. It's unmuted, but
Yeah, he's in there.
he's in.
He just has to get his,
Why don't we continue our visit?
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so the question then would be, we're talking about a meeting after April 3rd to look at the whole plan draft put together before 60-day law. A Saturday morning could work for us. I know that's maybe not preferred for a lot of people, or we could do another day of the week as long as the room is available. We could do just online. 15th is a Tuesday. And switch to a Tuesday night. How does that sound? Tuesday,
It's all fine for me. Does that still work for you, even though you said the 15th? I know that's pushing it. So, but would that work for you, Jim? Will come that night on the Tuesday?
At least online.
online, okay. April 15th? Tuesday, April
Will
15th?
that work for you? It doesn't work.
No.
Okay.
But I think it, online is great,
Oh, okay. All right.
but not 15.
Oh,
Not
but
online, okay. What about the 14th, Monday?
that would be 14th, Monday?
Online is okay.
Yes.
I mean, you could do online, Judy.
Well, that's right between my husband's two different sites.
Okay.
The 7th and the 21st. I
I
came solo this weekend, so
Thank you.
I couldn't come solo. Let's see how.
Go for it.
The 14th? Okay.
And just to review one more time, exactly what everybody, that not gonna be, so everybody knows what that I really wanted to receive.
What you'll get for that review then would be the entire plan draft.
Just for structure for the meeting that evening, then what would it be, then how would you want to go about presenting, or any comments, or whether, what would you be looking for us to, how would you want us to participate in the full draft of the document?
Well, I would suggest the way that you've been, managing these meetings, asking if anyone had questions on content or comments on content, and then particularly the goals and policies. And that is, those are the real, the goals and policies are really what implement the plan in addition to the implementation plan. So paying attention to those, seeing cross references, any redundancies, we're gonna weed those out before you get it. So there will be some changes, because I already know there are redundancies. And just some general cleanup, nothing that would be significant in terms of changing content, but that's what we probably, I think the way you're managing these seems effective. So again, if we're,
Exciting. Exciting.
and then remember, after 60-day public review, there are gonna be more comments. Before it goes to public hearing, so it's not the final, it might be the draft of the draft. It goes to public hearing, so, Yeah.
So are we gonna be doing that after the 60-day review team?
Well, that's a question. I think like with for instance, the regional planning committee, they did need to reconvene after 60-day review because there were some substantial comments that they need to do. So we don't know. It depends on what kind of comments come in on the 60-day review. If there are substantial comments that which potentially need decisions, then we might. That's a possibility, but I don't know yet. Regional plan had 2,400 comments. I'm not sure. So again, just for the 60-day review, we'll also be heading out and about and doing open houses. In addition to the online open house formats.
So like I said, do you know when the 60-day review starts, and have you got a deadline to start that?
Well, so as soon as we have this plan draft put together and you all are comfortable with it, we're gonna get that started. So by the end of April, and that's even the later than we want it to start. So April, May, will be in June, then before we can wrap that up. And we were anticipating starting public hearings this summer. That's gonna make it tight. But we'll keep on that path. Gonna go on 60-day review, we don't have any leeway, it's statute. To give that amount of time. But it's good, it's good to get out there and talk to people again and give people time to digest it and provide feedback. There's Aaron. Okay, one more picture.
All right, well, if you guys are good with all of that, let's dive in.
Okay.
That's right.
June. Hi, Aaron. Thanks.
It's not as hard as it was when you were on that. Go.
Would you guys want to talk one more picture outside now that Aaron's here? Okay, so everybody like Jim?
No, that's not.
We're gonna leave for 1 second and go out and take one more picture. We'll be right back.
It's off the way.
Too late. We'll be back. I love your outfits. Oh, it's so great. Well, that's why I did it. You showed up just in time. Okay,
that meets how the economy is.
Good, so. You're you have sunglasses in that picture.
I know, I try to help things. It's one of those things that like, let's take a picture outside of me. I have to take turns to.
Okay, so we'll go right into the chapter, yeah. Okay, so I do want to make a few introductions for John. Oh, hi. So this is your Resilient Economies Plus Housing chapter. And John Softenstall, you want to introduce yourself, please?
I'm John Saltonstall, I'm the Economic Development Director of Coconino County. Just finished year one with the county. But I'm fairly familiar with some of our general surroundings, having been with the city of Flagstaff for a number of years, but excited for the conversation and for the opportunity to have some input here, your ideas about economic development and housing.
Hi, I'm Zach Schwartz. I'm the senior planner. I know some of you better than others. I work a lot on the more current stuff, like hearing cases, that sort of thing, and just permits into the office. But good to see you all again. I worked with John a lot on this chapter, and Melissa helped quite a bit as well. So, yeah, nice to see you all.
These are our two subject matter experts with input from Jess and from me. Yeah, yes. So there's only one thing I really wanted to mention, and John and I had a conversation about this part. Is this big enough to see? This one paragraph that talks about like second minimum wage, and it's really good information. We made a call though that is probably not appropriate for a land use document. And so we took it out, but John is going to use this in the larger economic development picture that. In
April, in 2 weeks, the 1st of April is the next meeting. I'll be presenting economic development. Really reflecting back what I've learned over this year. As I came into the role, the main thing that I heard was the county wasn't sure what economic development looked like in the county. And they thought tourism might be a factor. So, in any event, I've done a lot of reading, a lot of meeting, a lot of miles as well. And I'll be presenting to the board on the 1st. And I'll really have some input, some language about the minimum wage in Flagstaff, because in terms of how it relates to our economy, having our county seat at 21% higher than the rest of the area, it does have some dynamics that are worth considering.
We just wanted to give you an update right away on, rethinking whether or not that's something for our comprehensive plan. And then with that, Billy, I'll just let you ask about. I wasn't gonna go through the whole chapter again unless you'd like me to just give an overview of the sections. So I will say though, the housing part is new to this comprehensive plan. You know, our 2015 plan mentioned housing, but not in a way that really highlighted it the way we wanted to do this time because it has come up in such a and then, you know, resilient economies, as you've been talking about as a group, we've understood that there are different types of issues that have kind of floated the surface around in terms of tourism and those impacts. So those are some of the main highlights that we have tried to address in this. And did you, yeah, Billy, did you want to just go ahead and start asking?
Yeah, I think we'll just go around.
Do you guys mind if I close that door because of the noise? Would that be all right? That would be great. Sorry, Judy. Oh,
I really don't have any intention to want to change your air. From living in Forest Lakes, I have learned a lot. Especially in this chapter, so things just to take back and maybe educate our community a little bit more, especially in rentals and. Otherwise, right. Well, of course, I have lots. Let's say that one issue that this group has articulated many times is your phrase about trying to alter the situation where we're exporting our kids. And that comes through in a couple places here, but I have suggested a couple of places additionally where I think making that very strong point belongs, such as in the initial vision, economic development and housing vision. That seems like such a core issue. The section on page 2 called Future Trends. Just have one short paragraph about tourism growth, but I think we've talked about other trends or potential future issues that might reasonably be mentioned there. I think paragraph about tourism growth doesn't do justice to what we can reasonably foresee in terms of climate impacts, fire risk, and the like. And I have some suggestions about things you might want to spare. Page 8, you have 4 paragraphs about rural planning areas, RPAs, but it's not at all clear. Are there any already in the county? And one, is there a potential for more? Are there parts of the country where RPAs have really made a difference and we should be emulating that? Anyway, that just didn't seem sufficiently discussed. Similarly, about forestry and natural products, you have a short paragraph presenting some data on 4.5 from the Nature Conservancy. Then, okay, those numbers sound big, but is there the potential for more, which I think most of us think there is that much smaller economic impact than forest products industry used to have in this region. It's a smaller impact than it could have. You know, there's just like no context and no why to those numbers that are presented there. Page 10, workforce issues. You know, there's a few sentences about workforce development is leadership development and succession development, but there seems like so much more you could say about how that relates to us, exporting our kids and our inability to keep people here. And also the potential that NAU especially represents bringing talent to the county for a few years and then it goes away because they feel like they have to go get a job on the coast. So you have a really nice phrase in policy EH3, but it seems like some version of that could go on here on page 10, where don't have, you know, somehow there's a mismatch between the jobs and the employers we have don't seem to be able to keep people and talent, either homegrown or NAU abroad. And meanwhile, we've got these people who don't seem to be able to find jobs. So the mismatch between the workforce and the employers just seemed like that paragraph wasn't a sufficient setup for the policy statement that we have. Page 11, opportunity zones. This was a mystery. I tried to look, I looked at the Department of Commerce website where it said you can learn more about this. So I just wanted to see where are the ones in Coconino County? What are we doing with them? Have they worked? Well, apparently the only way you can search the Department of Commerce database is to register as a potential investor, which I wasn't prepared to do. So maybe you guys could register as a potential investor and find out and put a summary of that information here. Because I wanted to know if there's some context for a policy where we should be, you know, like to promote the opportunity zones we already have. We should be trying to have more, or maybe the opportunity zones have already done everything they're going to do for us. But anyway, that paragraph seems like there could be more information in there. And then housing, page 13, issues and solutions. There's no mention of the second home and the short-term rental business as issues or challenges for us. I know we don't have any solutions for them, but I think the county has more information on short-term rentals than it used to have now that there's registration, licensing, or whatever. So anyway, it seemed like that could be mentioned as an issue. And then last, oh no, that's goals and policies. I'll save that for later.
Thank you. Melissa, do you have any questions?
Probably, but I've got to think about these and, yeah, some of the information, for instance, on the opportunity zones, I don't know if that will be available to us, but we can look and see. I know they're designated by census tract. I have been able to get into that website and look at the map. There's a mapping tool on that website that shows they're all big census tracts. And, but I don't know how much investment has been made in them or by who. So, that's one thing. On the, we have mentioned, we do have a number in here for short-term rentals. It's right around 970 or something. So that is in here. I'll have to see how that, can maybe be woven in back to the that one section on housing issues. And then in terms of, yeah, I mean, these are good comments. We will see how much, more, data we would have, for instance, on the, forestry products. If we have some sort of historical data on how much the industry, brought in previously, I don't know offhand what that might be, but we can look at that. Just a little bit on the rural planning areas. We have one, it's the Diablo Canyon Rural Planning Area, and I put Diane's familiar with it. So we can add more information about that, but it is a really, really well done plan, I have to say. So I don't remember what year it was adopted, but a lot of it is still very relevant to today. And it's something that, Diane, do you want to speak at all to how you all are using that, the Diablo? Okay,
No, not really.
yeah,
But I mean, I had the same question. Why are there not more of them? How does anybody that's in the rural part of this county know that that's a possibility? How do they know it's a possibility? I don't know. And I feel. Is it my turn?
It is.
Thank you, Joe. You all talk about ruralness and large landscapes and all this bullshit, but there's nothing in here about supporting ranchers, about supporting those large landscapes and all that. And I don't know if there needs to be, but I'm just gonna tell you that. And I'll come back to the timber thing. Dollars are dollars. And that is important, but the important thing might be that we're taking care of the forest rather than burning them down. And maybe we can make a product out of it. And that's not even in here. I mean, all of this seems to be centered around Flagstaff, and that's housing needs. And the people that are swirling around in the city trying to make a living. And I don't think this really supports the economy that supports this county. Having said that, I have some of the same questions that Laura did. I don't know how we do this, but if you're gonna be a rural county or to tout those values, there needs to be something in the discussion about supporting those industries, whatever they are. And I don't see that. On page 7, there's a thing about national parks, national recreation areas, national monuments, and natural attraction. Well, we got the USFS and state of Arizona. They're not even interested or not even mentioned here. And that's a high percentage of government and public sector employees. They work for them too. So I think we need to step back and see what are we highlighting that is here right now. I don't think we're doing it. Then on the RPA, I've had the same thing. I never heard about an RPA. What are they? Essential for preserving ranchland and working landscapes. I think that's the case. And I know that if we're going to talk about the landscape and the ruralness of it and the trails and everybody needs to be out in nature, well, we better support the industries that do that. And I know that there's a lot of public land involved in that, and the reservations have their thing. We need to support that, not just push it aside and say we're going to recreate on it. And DCT, Coconino Community College, needs to be turning out more loggers, more ranchers, or not ranch managers or whatever. I mean, we're not dealing with the underlying pinning of this county. We need to make more lumber. So that's my whole deal. on number 10, workforce issues, I couldn't make any sense of that. All those comments didn't make any sense to me. I don't understand that. I think this needs to focus on the youth that are here, that what are they, so you go to AU, who do you go to work for? You gotta work for the US office, not in private industry. And private industry really needs to be supported. Tourism, I think it has some negative effects on the county. One of which, and it hasn't really happened, but I think it can happen. Tourism is it now an international thing, but it's discretionary income. And if discretionary goes away, there's nobody to support those jobs. We need to underpin it with production. Tourism sit on top of it, but we should underpin the county with genuine production. In housing, I don't know that the county has to play much in housing, but I guess they have to do that somehow. So that's my beef. I only read this once, didn't spend much time in it, but I just was feeling like if this is the rural economies that we're talking about, or the economy, or whatever it is, I think we need to hit those industries that underpin it. And I think we need to do more logging, but that's a whole nother conversation. But in the ranching industry right now, pretty soon, the world's gonna pay us to put carbon in the ground and water in the ground. They're gonna pay us to do that. Well, they are. I mean, really soon, if you see what's happening in irrigation agriculture. And there's no recognition. I don't want the county to pay us. Private industry will pay us. But if we're not there with our private lands being branched or whatever, we're all gonna go away.
Explain, I'm not following what you're saying. So what would we need to update?
Well, I don't know how to do it, but I think somehow you need to write something in here that talks about the timber producing, the water that goes in the ground, and ranching to keep all of this going on rural lands, and the fact that y'all want to go out there and play on it in ATVs or bicycles or whatever. I just read something from the Arizona Park and it made me stand up. Have you read it? Oh, it makes you scroll up. I mean, it's just like we're assumed to be out there. And that's not, I don't think a county needs to assume they're always going to do that. I think we need to hit on the production part of it. And then that can underlie all this other stuff, housing, whatever. I mean, and somewhere there was an idea of what's it called? I'm a little bit buzzy because I had a county meeting today, but that density can be moved from one parcel to another parcel within the county. Was that in here?
Mm-hmm. It is.
So that's pretty, that I like, that's good. But if we don't have the private land to move it from, to get it to the town where they need the county, or where the town needs its housing, that isn't not good.
Well, there's a whole, thought behind that I can explain in more detail as far as that specific strategy. And we wrote that in here in particular response to what you talked about as far as the.
We'll make it a little bit stronger because I don't think it's.
Well, yeah, when we get to the goals, I guess I can elaborate on that. But I do want to ask you, Diana, because on page, we had a section in here that tried to focus, there's one on forestry and natural products. And I understand the context that Laura was putting up that we don't have any references to it now. But we also have a section in here, and I'm sorry, I can't even use it. get to the right page, on page 7, about, right above that, the ranching, working landscapes and the environment. And, you know, we wanted to highlight specifically what you all have been talking about as far as how important ranching and working landscapes are to the underpinning economy of the county. And yeah, just, you know, wanting to understand more about what else this, you know, this chapter is not meant to be an exhaustive analysis of economic development. We can't do that with this. So, yeah, we need to have that balance about, you know, what's important on the land use side of it and what we, you know, is for another effort.
So how do you think the RPA is going to be used or can be used?
So there's a policy.
Does anybody know what that is?
Well, we have a policy and the goals and policies that, you know, talk specifically to promoting those. Because it is a tool. It would be a tool for other areas in the county to.
You're talking about the rural planning area.
The rural planning.
That's what the all trustee has.
Yeah, but I don't know that other areas in the county that's been, I don't know if there's any private landowners that know about an RPA and would want to participate in it.
Well, that's why we have a policy in there about promoting it. You know, and make it more, it's like an area, it's similar to an area plan, but for a much different geography. And for a different reason. So like Jess said, we have one right now, but we have 9 area plans. So over the years, you know, area plans have been written for specific communities. But the rural planning area is for the Diablo Canyon rural planning area, and that was done for that area. And I wasn't here then. I think that process, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, Billy, was initiated by the property owners, maybe?
No question about it. It was bold, and then it was forward, and no question about it. It was a great accomplishment for everybody involved.
So it's, you know, actually we went in and used some of the language in this, right, directly from that plan. So that's something, it sounds like we could actually highlight that even more, though. The rural planning areas, what it might
Or maybe
be,
just-
as another tool.
Yeah. Then on page 9, I don't like this word extraction. Forest industry represents how people are attracted to go forest-based extraction. I don't like extraction. Or is that, am I crazy about using extraction? I don't think it's a good word.
It is pretty commonly used.
Is it? Okay. Okay, everybody else knows what it means, but for me, it's like, it just seems like something that's taken away and I've never brought back, and that's not renewal, but anyway. And we should talk about lumber in there, not just biomass. I know biomass right now is maybe more important than others if we don't have large, don't have large timber to harvest, but I think we need to mention lumber in there too.
Yeah, my highlight's not showing up, it's in the second to last sentence.
And I think the Forest Service could probably tell you how many million feet were, or how many forest products were caught. And is this 219 million for the state or in Arizona or Coconino or what is it on page 8? And I have the 1,000 full-time and part-time jobs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that
in
came
this
right
county,
from-
or is that all the counties?
That's the 4-5, the whole area. I don't know that we have
Okay.
it specific to the county. Probably not.
Anyway. And I don't understand the workforce issue at all. That doesn't make any sense to me. So whatever Laura suggested, I would probably go with. And I think we do need to talk about Coconino County, Coconino Community College as well as NAU. Because I think many of the jobs would be enhanced if we had more people turning up to do the, what others lines everything.
Yeah, and just on page 6, we talk about CCC.
Do you, okay, like I said, I only had a chance to read this one. Okay, and why do we have golfing in here? On page 6. Benefit from the comparable recreation opportunities, including river rafting, fishing, golfing, hunting, fishing.
Well, there are some golf courses in the counties.
I know, but are they on federal land, BLM, National Park Service, and USSF? It starts off beginning because of the vast amount of federal lands managed by BLM, National Park Service, and USFS, residents and visitors from incomparable recreation opportunities, including river rafting, fishing, also on those other land, golfing. Are there any golf courses on any of the land? That's what that just struck me as.
Right.
Okay, all right, we'll take out.
Okay, I'm shut up.
Let's see.
I think you had that was.
That was crazy, but like I had business and I'm the ranch today and I'm just kind of out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diana.
I really don't have a whole lot. The only thing that really I think was, that I was kind of just wondering was, we have this number of 29.3 billion on page 5 under tourism and recreation. It's just a lump sum that I didn't see anywhere else, that refers to just Coconino County. I think I've said that before, and I don't know if there's any way of finding that out, how much, what are we dealing with for us?
I
And
don't
then-
think we found that data actually, just in the county.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but we can talk. We haven't found the data just for Coconino County
Not
specifically.
from the Arizona office.
Yeah, we've asked.
We were able to find from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, this 14 billion for the state of Arizona. And Game and Fish has one about fishing. There's a brand new report that came out. Talked about how much anglers spend in Coconino County, which is, I don't know if we have it here, but it is tough to narrow down just to Coconino cases.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just concerned sometimes because we have tourism money, and as indigenous nations, we get lumped into tourism money. So I guess that's why I'm wanting to know a little bit more about the breakouts out of that, because, just having that come off nation lands into the regular economy is just, something that I think we need to know about. The other one was just dark skies, and I think I don't know, I think we would do really well if we partner with other counties so that we can have like a broad dark skies across northern Arizona, the whole northern Arizona.
I think we have a policy in our community heritage chapter about doing just something just like that.
Because I think that will just also increase traffic for tourism. And then we'll just say, bring your own water.
Absolutely.
That's all I have.
Well, this is great. Just a couple things, from my perspective on workforce housing, I think it is a great option, but I don't think it's what we should really encourage because going to Tucson, it's a revolving door. People get fired or they leave their job, they have to leave the community. Same thing, you work for the company, you lived in the company housing, you're essentially grouping it all together, which limits a sense of freedom. So that's just my perspective on workforce housing. And then essentially too with, I think encourage, why I love the cottage industry is because it promotes being a producer versus a consumer. And I really feel that we have a really awesome opportunity to become a more of a producer, specifically out there in Valley. We have a lot of land, we have a lot of people that are wanting to live there, to live the homestead life, to grow food, to raise animals. The ranch land is big out there. And I don't know if you guys are aware of how many native plants that are medicinal and edible. Right now, if you go walk outside, specifically in Valley right now, you can find the wild parsley. And that's edible, that's food, and it's growing to galore right now. And we had a crazy drought and they're out. For instance, sage, the globe mallow, mullein, we have it living and growing right now, and it doesn't require us going and watering it. So my point is encouraging the regenerative farming agriculture, but utilizing our native plants that we have. Pinyon, right? Pine nuts, how expensive are those, right? Yeah, exactly. You can eat tumbleweeds. My point is, I took an ecology course. I went to the Grand Mesa in Colorado, the Grand Junction, and it's the same elevation as us. And my goodness, it was the coolest thing ever. And to be able to educate, I think that's the other thing, is educating. And I just would love to see more around how we can become producers instead of just consuming. And that's why tourism, it makes me a little nervous because we're promoting consumerism, the water, the food. And when those tourists come and visit, we're importing that food from who knows where, when there is a grand opportunity for the community to make that food, to have the pine nuts, to the mullein, and we can incorporate that in their experience. Because I think it's really important that we develop community and culture, and then tourism gets to enjoy our culture. And I think that's where with the Grand Canyon, we have that amazing, one of the 7 wonders of the world, to attract people from around the world. And not only is the Grand Canyon attracting people, but the dark skies. I do stargazing tours at Clear Sky Resorts, and people come, I say, hi, you going to the Grand Canyon? They're like, no, I actually just came for the dark skies. Mm-hmm. And I will add, when I look at the southern sky, when I'm looking out, Williams is brighter than Flagstaff. So creating that communication with the communities to like, hey, by the way, you're super bright. Like super bright. It's actually impressive. And going back to the recreation, I got my degree in Parks and Recreation. I absolutely think play and leisure is absolutely important. But how do we incorporate a sense of harmony with nature? The off-roading vehicles, and so, which we've talked about that in the past. I just want to highlight, it would be really cool to see more support around how we can be producers versus just consumers. And again, and with tourism and with short-term rentals and hotels, we're just creating service jobs. We're capping people. We're capping maintenance, house cleaners, where you become a producer, you're uncapped. You have way more opportunity to develop way more wealth versus when you're capped at just a service job, you're kind of just stuck at what the minimum wage or whatever the wage may be. So I think creating more opportunity, whether, we still need the maintenance people, we still need the housekeepers, but creating opportunity for them to also rise up to develop their own land and not be stuck in workforce housing. Because you know, the other thing with the Grand Canyon and Tucson, I know people that have been out there for 40+ years and now they're like, what am I gonna do? Where am I gonna retire? Same thing in Valley. Where do people go to retire? So I think creating the full circle of life and incorporating that in our economic development, because we also need the place for the folks that are gonna hit their point of life where they're gonna need the care, and that creates economic opportunity to nurses, caretakers. So I know the boomers are coming and that's a big crisis right now. And I know that a lot of retirees don't wanna go to Flagstaff, they don't wanna go to Phoenix, they wanna stay in their rural, they want to see the stars. But so I think that's a great opportunity in the rural areas, is more retirement communities versus just focusing on tourism, because like you said, tourism can't depend on it. We saw that in COVID. It literally almost destroyed, it did destroy businesses. And I will say, my parents' business with the hardware store lasted because it was an essential business. So those are things I think we really should consider. Yeah, I know we're.
Super, thank you,
It's
Mark.
great.
Listen, do you have any questions?
No, thanks for the comments.
Okay, good. Well, then we can go up to this big screen and see if Jim Parks with his hand
He's
up.
got his hand raised.
As his, Jim, you want to jump in and participate at this point?
No, you're
We don't have your voice, Jim.
not hearing you, Jim.
All right, we'll come back to you.
Oh, we're good.
No, that was,
We're gonna come back to you, Jim. We'll
Might be
let you
done.
figure that out and we'll keep moving.
Yeah, Jim, you might need to go back on your phone if your microphone is on your computer's not working.
Okay, well, let's keep rolling anyway, so we keep our momentum.
Overall, I have liked what I've read. I do have I'm very curious, how some of the grouping got put in with the little pie chart, like education and health. I'm just curious what the choice was to combine education and health.
Well, this is straight from the Census Bureau.
Okay,
So it's
so
the
they-
categories that they put together to describe, the main industries in the county.
Okay. I was just curious about that. I'm also very curious, how did American Community Survey come up with the median home value? Do we know?
Well, again,
Because that does not seem accurate to me.
the number, what page is that on again?
It's on what?
So, yeah, that's
I mean, am I the only one that feels like that's a low number?
the median home value. So that was as of 2023, and that's average for the county. So, the median is average.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
yeah, it
that's-
is big county, I guess.
It's county as a whole, not just Flagstaff. So think, think wider than just that. It's
Yeah.
average for the whole county.
Okay. Okay,
I mean, these are just numbers straight off their.
yeah, I know, I'm just curious, how they came up to it, because I feel like even the rural areas are getting to outpace that.
Well, it's 2 years old by now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's too bad we can't get more updated.
yeah, this is their most recent survey.
Okay. All right. Overall, I mean, I don't really have any additional comments. I here.
Jim, if you're on the phone, you're gonna have to turn your.
Mute your computer.
Mute your
and then turn
computer.
volume on the computer.
he is.
Well, no, he needs to turn the volume of his computer.
Computer is picking up on the screen.
His phone is picking the computer, not the computer speaker.
There you go.
Well, he thought of the call. So I don't really have anything additional to add.
Super. Questions?
Um, Generally, good, listen to the comments and go to it. But as, very disappointed with just that stat.
The what?
The statistic about the median household income versus. And it's one of those things you just throw up your hands and say, we give up. Never gonna change. To see the percentage of renters now in principally the Western United States, the population, dramatically increasing. Italy's flipped around and started going the other way. And it's turned, it's more, it's rough numbers, we're 30% renters, Italy's not 20%. And you're saying, why is that? Families from Italy don't have all night. Why did they high? But whatever they did something right, or they did something wrong and accidentally turned into what it was. I just have a hard time seeing people that work real hard, what job they do, they work hard. They're a couple or two buddies or whatever else, they try to get in the house and they can't do it. How do we write a policy that tries to influence that? That may be on the goals or something. It's just the general, the stats, they are what they are. So can't whine about that. It looks to me as though things you just give up and say, just let it find its own action. I don't know what you can say in your encourage. I like your comments in that rants. Those are all huge because those create like your clear sky, if you feel in Utah. What do you call that? There's one here, Bryce, Canada. Huge success, and their huge success in the tourism side. So I think they're $1,200 a night. And they come, they book it. These tourists are bringing in real money, dropping. I talked to the waitresses and stuff about that. They talk about their tips. It's like some of these family groups show up from India. Their tips, like, what they make in a year. They're very generous, but it's such a different economic group. And we are leading them necessarily. Solidarity and stuff in King County across the border. I'm not sure what to add to this. Just making a comment. The workforce housing, our kids, what are we doing wrong? Well, we emulate what they're doing. I bring up Italy. Italy's flipped. Now they're I think they're 20% now in renters. I mean, used to have 60%. What's happening there? I don't know. Looking at you guys over there, I really have no idea. I do like what's in here though. Yes, that says put facts on. I get some goals and stuff. We brainstorm and figure something out. I don't have strategies. I think I really don't do it.
All of that you mentioned Italy, I just know that they had problems with migration of many of their people for a long time, and the immigration was not familiar with a lot of the culture there. So that just was what popped in my mind as soon as you said that. How does that play into it? In terms of what we're doing here, I have all the same concerns and questions about our community and the longevity. And so we're certainly trying to speak to some of those issues that we need to be focused on. I just have thoughts about it, and I appreciate hearing what you all are saying about what you think we can do and how we can focus on those producers. Don't have an answer. I share these questions and concerns. That's for sure. Super. Anything else? No. Any questions?
I don't want to, ignore John and Zach either, so you guys can got questions as well. Okay.
Yeah, well, I'd like to thank everybody. I think you've given some really thoughtful comments, and I think we have a lot to work on. I agree some of the questions, what can we do? Take a look at what we've written here and try to incorporate what you said today.
If I just add on to what I think we can do, I did hear about the relationship between forestry and the ranching. I think that's And also how it is more than just industry, it's a community value that protects our communities. And we can certainly add to that, because that's very important. I think the dark skies, and I've heard many people speak to that and how we lead with some of these assets. And they're not traditional economic development assets, but they're assets to us. And I don't want to go too far afield. I see a great opportunity in this document, and you all are doing it, but the opportunity is to articulate who we are, and what matters to us, because people from around the world for different economies work differently than Coconino County. It is varied. And the opportunity and the duty is for us to say, this is who we are, and this is what matters to us, and this is how we live here. And if you want to visit, here's how you be a good steward. And if not, then just go down the hill or somewhere else. With all due respect. So just a few things that I heard. Or
I'm just pointing out that Jim.
Yeah,
So Jim is wanting to know if it's on this end that the problem is with.
We can't hear.
And so, Jim, they're shaking their head that no, the problem is not on this end, it's on your end. Can we hear Zach?
That'll cause it.
I told him you were not.
All right, give it a shot, Jim, where are you at?
No.
No.
Yeah.
I think it should
I think
turn
it's
the computer
because-
off and just call.
I think
So,
so.
Jim, how about, turning your computer off and then just calling in?
You're off, just close the meeting.
Right.
Well, we're waiting for him to figure
Well,
that out.
the thing is, do you have some flavor?
Yeah, I
Okay,
just
super.
wanted to piggyback off of something that Laura had said in as far as like retaining workforce.
Mhm.
And I manage a very small team at NDU. When we're full, I have 5 staff members, and now I only have 3. But in the last 3 years, I've had 2 people leave, and they specifically told me because they can't afford to live here. So one was everything's going to rent and expense. I can't save money, so I'm going back to North Carolina. Another one who's lived in Arizona her whole life, her last day was yesterday, she's moving to Tennessee because she cannot afford to live in Flagstaff. She tried rural and commuting an hour each way, and it wasn't working for her, especially when weather is considered. So that's something that, I have no control over the pay that I offer them. It's the university, they set that, and I have to stay within it. And finding people that meet the qualifications for my team is very hard. It's a niche. It's a niche community, and there's not that many people who specialize in it. So, and speaking to another point, it's like what's important to us. I think people who live here, they live here because they want to live here. They don't live here because it's a convenience. They live here because they sought it out because of the opportunities as far as recreation, environment, weather, whatever it may be, and they figure out a way to make it work, even if that's 4 people, 5 people sharing the rent in a house. So, those are just a few of my thoughts, that just general state of things. And it's a frustrating thing from someone from like my perspective, that I feel like I need to be able to pay people more to keep them, and I can't. So.
Jim, you want to give a 1, 2, 3 chat?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
This has been a trial by fire here. I have not experienced this much trouble before on one of these meetings, but I wish I could have been there in person. But I've got a sick horse, and I kind of had to come home and take care of some things here because I work today. But anyway, I do have a couple of things. If you guys are up for listening to what the information that I would like to provide. Is
You
this a
have
good
the floor.
time?
You have the floor, Jim. You have the floor for whatever it is you want to discuss.
All right, great. I'm going to start at the beginning of the chapter, and I'll be on the page, I guess it's page 1, right after, yeah, page 1, below economic development and housing vision. I had a couple of things here that concern me because we're not utilizing some of the native building materials that we could here in Coconino County, and I think some of them may be even against building regulations. So let me throw out a couple of things here, and you guys can kick them around a little bit. At the end of the paragraph, the first paragraph, it is economic development and housing vision. It begins land use regulations preserve the rural lifestyle, and goes down to the bottom. And it says at the end of that sentence, the end of the last sentence, and allow for alternative building methods, are encouraged. I would like to add between methods and are encouraged, such as adobe, rammed earth, straw bale, traditional log, and native stone are encouraged. Any questions on that?
I see passive solar too.
I'm sorry, what?
We're good, Jim. That's super.
Okay. Great. Then on the next page, on page 2, I've got a little blurb that I'd like to insert 2 of them. It goes down to the 4th sentence from the top. At the end of the sentence, it says, in cultural resources, increase traffic, comma. And right there, I would like to insert especially OHV traffic on rangelands and forest roads. Then in the 6th sentence, 2 sentences down, it says impacts from weather, and I would like to insert a comma there and put periodic drought, comma, and then go on to climate change. Is that acceptable?
Okay, Jim, next.
Okay. And then a couple more. I'm going to try to do this kind of all at once where you guys don't have to put up with me too long, and I'm afraid this phone's going to die anyway. Going down to page 7, Diana had some comments there about agriculture and ranching in general. So at the end of the paragraph there, after the ranching and working landscapes, ranching, working landscapes and environment, and then after social connections and rural lifestyle that this industry supports, I would like to add the total impact of agriculture in Arizona's economy. This is from the Arizona Farm Bureau. Is over. Don't have to put that in there. That was a footnote. The total impact of agriculture in Arizona's economy is over $23 billion in 2023 figures, and direct sales of ag products amounting to over $5 billion. Direct sales from ranching in Arizona amount to $2.2 billion, with Coconino County one of the largest beef producers from public lands grazing. I'd like to add that. Did you guys
Jim,
catch
did you
that?
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask if you can email those comments so we can get them
And it's like the sources.
and the sources.
Good data.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
That'd be really good to have that data. Email or
Okay.
drop it off, whichever.
All right, I will. All right, I'll get off here and go back on the computer so I can listen to the rest of the meeting. And,
Oh, was that, I mean, that's the rest of your comments, but I just wanted to introduce you. I like that language and your sources. But finish your comments.
finish the comments? Okay,
Is that all you?
Yeah, just, I just wanted to follow up to make sure we capture that. And if you can send it to me.
okay. I'm sorry, could you repeat your last sentence? I didn't catch it.
Just to ask you to send the text and the data sources.
Okay, I'll do that.
Jim, do you have further comments?
No, I was going to, no, that's pretty much it. That kind of would address where Diana, I hope that it addresses where Diana has questions and frustrations. Because it does, that comment there addresses her frustrations, I believe, I hope. So, anyway, I'll call it good with those comments.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, well. Yes, maybe I get to just say something just for a moment. Interesting, in, January of 2025, last month, so ago, Arizona Central Republic newspaper put in there, this Arizona county is a top spot for vacation homes. Here's why. Did you guys see this article? No.
Vicky?
Goes through and it breaks you up. Coconino County has long been an outdoorsy paradise with numerous opportunities for outdoor recreation, hiking, skiing, sightseeing. Coconino County, a second home on average, costs slightly more than $796,000. Second home in Coconino County. Coconino County, Arizona, with its county seat in the beautiful mountain town of Flagstaff, is surrounded by the Coconino National Forest and the world's largest contiguous ponderosa pine forest. The county is also home to iconic destinations such as the Grand Canyon and the Antelope Canyon. Interesting, right? The same Antelope Canyon study says. Trends indicate that several other communities similar to Flagstaff are kind of in the same place. I'm going to zip you on down here to the bottom because you guys aren't going to guess this here. Top 10 vacation home markets in the U.S. What number do you think Flagstaff is? Number 6 out of the entire United States. Okay, you ready for why I wanted to read this to you? Guess what's number 7? Maui County, Hawaii.
Whoa.
Flagstaff is above Maui with all of the data that they use for this article. And so it's really interesting because we go through and, somebody brought up this pie chart, right? You say, why is it so heavy, down here on the bottom with all the tourism and all this other stuff and all these other things, no manufacturing, no all these other things. Nobody wants to live here for that. So it really causes a problem. So then when Diana brings up this one side, let's say from the ranchers, AKA private landowners in Coconino County, right? It's like, we love you guys, but look, this is our market, man. We're 6th in the United States above Hawaii for this other stuff. This other stuff drives second homes to almost $800,000, affordable housing. It drives minimum wage because that's who you need to work to do the stuff to be sixth in the United States. So, it's an interesting thing because it's not really being critical on this because we all agree how awesome this is. What it is the paradigm. It's the model itself that everybody is having conversations about and is struggling with because it's like we can't get actually, somebody said, who we are. Because we can't let you say who we are because we want to live here because we choose it. But yet at the same time, you're sixth in the United States above Hawaii for people who want to have second homes here that want to pay $800,000 and not care and make sure they go to the restaurants and have all the people serving them their food and doing all the other stuff. So it's a real curious kind of thing. And so as you guys move forward, and Mike said it beautifully here, you want to give up. Well, if it's that model, you don't have a lot of options, right? You're kind of just stuck with what you have. My cousin Jim Babbitt used to always say in advertising, say what you are. You're sixth in the United States for tourism, for second homes, for all these things. That's what you are. So we go around trying to say, well, we want this, we want that, we want, affordable housing, we want higher wages. Well, you're not getting it. It's not the model. And so those conversations, so it's almost more like either embracing fully what you are and letting it rip, or as you suggest, changing what that really is. And money's going to drive it, right? Money's going to drive it. And so anyway, I just wanted to share this with you all because I think everybody does a really good job. And I think everybody, the frustrations you hear, nobody's wrong. Everybody's actually right. It's just that the model itself for Coconino County is like, we just want to live here because it's a small town, it's quiet, it's got all these things and stuff like that. Well, so does apparently the rest of the United States. And that is your challenge and that is your deal. So anyway, that's my fun thing to get to say. And anyway, I don't know that it changes anything in particular, but when it comes to the goals, certainly one of the big goals for the future of Coconino County is going to be to understand who we are and embracing that.
You'll forward that article as well.
Yeah,
I'd love to see it.
that's kind of fun. Who's against above Hawaii?
This minimum wage study that the local workforce board just published in December of last year showed that our wages were very similar, and that we've got some similar dynamics with these places that I don't really think. When I think Coconino County, I'm not thinking Hawaii.
Nice harder to get to than we are.
That's true.
That may be the barrier that's like making them want to love it.
You got some ideas about that?
Yeah.
I will suggest though, as you move forward, to not take lightly what Maria was talking about, what Diane is talking about, and what you're hearing here. I will tell you that on the heels of that conversation, Baton Ranches is doing nothing else but looking at that conversation. We're going to have to imagine our new economy and what that includes. And it's going to look different than what's traditional and what's traditionally taught. It's going to be pioneering a brand new paradigm. And you're going to see it. We saw it here in Coconino County about 35 years ago. So I have no doubt it's going to happen again. But you can clearly see a paradigm shift coming, at least from that landowner base, on where the economy is going to be from the broader land ownership in Coconino.
I am very curious to see what happens if it ever comes to fruition, the College of Medicine that NAU is planning to open. So I'm very, very curious. I mean, it'll be a long term before we see really anything from it, but I mean, the whole purpose of it is to educate rural doctors, which is desperately needed up here. So, and it's gonna be free tuition for under a certain, income bracket, which is gonna be a lot of people. So that's the potential for pushing out a lot of doctors that could potentially stay in our county because we're such a large rural county. That'll be very interesting. That'll be something that's probably 10 years from now
That might be open.
that we'll be looking at. Yeah. 'Cause I hope it happens. We'll see.
So with this, we're gonna go to the goals and make a circle on the circle. On the goals. Did you want to talk about anything before we do that?
There's a lot going through my head, but I think we should move on.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
because this is complex, it's esoteric. You know, these are philosophical discussions that we're not gonna solve with this comprehensive plan, but we do need the direction to be such that I like your phrase, you know, say what you are, you know, that's, I think, maybe a really good point to make.
And we're going to start with you on goals. If you have comments on the back end of this document, this chapter, this section.
And that starts on page 30.
And I did like, the, how you showed us what's new and what's combined and, you know, that's. It's clear what is being added and what's being.
Aaron, you have anything on goals and policies?
I think the only thing that I had that I noted was, the relationship with travel rights in relation to recreation and fleets and travel.
Did you want to change something or add something to that, or was?
No, I was trying to figure out where that could squeeze in, but I don't really see a ideal location for it.
Do you explain a little bit more about that?
I think we're strengthening the relationship between the counties and travel lands in relation to recreation and tourism. So, something along the lines of maybe a gateway to support one another and vice versa. And I mean, I think the Flagstaff was looked at as a gateway to Grand Canyon, and we turned that to also include the travel resources and travel opportunities.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I just want to let you know that something that economic development is hoping to do, and present to the board, is to say, we have an opportunity to formalize some relationships with our tribal partners and other communities, because it's a great opportunity, and I think it's required, especially if we are going to try and figure out how to fit who we are into this new model of economy. So that thought is shared, and we sure hope to advance it, and would love to have something in here too to support.
I see in goal EH5 that there may be an opportunity there if you wanted to do something, or if that was enough for challenges.
I think I would be satisfied as long as it's been acknowledged and it's on the radar, but maybe that's part of the plan, so to speak. You know, it's gonna be a changing situation because of dealing with at multiple levels.
And so to that point, I think even if we have a sentence or a phrase that says exploring, formalizing partnerships with tribal partners and other communities. Because if it's in here, then I can point to it, and whoever comes after me can, and whoever comes after us can point to it and say, hey, it's not just in someone's head, it's here because it matters.
Okay. Then you work on a statement, if you will, and I'll send it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Just a few points. One is on page 14, your policy EH4, about establishing education programs to teach new users how to manage and understand positive and negative elements of digital life. That didn't sort of came out of nowhere, or it didn't relate to, or I didn't see clearly where in the chapter that policy fits. On page 15, policy EH7, I wondered if somewhere in there is where those opportunity zones could be mentioned.
Laura, was it the telecommunications and broadband? On page 10, that maybe that was replying.
Well, it might be. I remember a lot of, I saw a lot of discussion there about how broadband is limiting or constraining in parts of the county, but this business about, like updating all us old folks on how to use digital was the impression I got out of that policy, and it didn't seem to match with, hey, we have so many old people in the county who can't use digital, that this is a problem for us. That didn't seem to be in the chapter.
Yeah, I don't think we.
So where, I really doubt we meant that, but that's the flavor that came out of that policy. So it's just, what is the context for that policy?
Speaks that.
I can just share.
I mean, you don't have
Yeah.
to spend everybody's time to explain it to me here. I'm just giving you my reflection as a reader. EH7, I wondered if that's where you might be able to do something with the opportunity zones, like the fact that there are a bunch in the county and they represent opportunities for us to do more promotion or to build that into our business attraction efforts or the life. Page 16, policy EH10, which is about focusing on low environmental impact enterprises. And policy EH11, prioritize low water and low energy users and other sustainable businesses. To me, those sounded like they could be combined or they're the same thing. I frankly did not see anywhere the rural planning areas or RPAs mentioned in the goals and policies. But I wonder if that belongs under policy EH12, and you do mention the transfer of development rights there. But, if RPAs belong anywhere, it seems like they belong in there. And then last, page 17, policy EH17, innovative housing solutions, innovative for rural living options, innovative housing solutions. So what is innovative? What do we currently have that's not innovative, or, how are we stuck in conventional and what sort of things? I think this is relevant to the examples that Jim brought up, and then, that Miranda weighed in with passive solar, but innovative building materials, native building materials, code flexibility. You guys are planners, so you understand a lot more of what would be innovative, but you can't just throw that in there and then not give people a clue as to what would be considered innovative. And I guess this is something that I should have said in the feedback on the chapter, but page 13, the terminology used in this plan recognizes there's affordable, attainable workforce housing. All three types might need to be added to the housing supply, blah, blah. But, okay, so you say they're there are three types, and you use those terms throughout the chapter, but there's never actually a definition given. So I would move that to the beginning of the housing section. And I know there's gonna be a glossary, but give people a break and define it right there in that first paragraph on the housing section. And then later, you need to say, here's how innovative ties back into more affordable or more available or more attainable. So, I think that's it.
Questions?
No, thanks.
Okay. She's good to go. I would ask if there are any questions?
Any questions? I
Fairly.
don't have any questions.
Okay, Rose.
I'm good.
Okay, that's it. Great.
I think a goal that I think it'd be really cool to be able to have a yearly meeting with all the communities all together. Because that's one thing I've noticed is Williams isn't talking to Tucson isn't talking to Wilkes Valley and blah, blah, blah. Not talking to Flagstaff or Fredonia, and how we could almost have a comprehensive yearly gathering to bring leaders together to work together. Because, yeah, I don't know if that's a thing. You guys do that? Did I hear about that? Oh, no, you were doing it different. Are you thinking of leaders to work together specifically on the economy or more? Yeah, all of it. Communication.
We nationally, all these groups get together,
Yeah.
but why not do it in Coconino County is what I think you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like the council members of all the incorporated towns and unincorporated towns, because, you know, there is a lot of talk about, you know, the hotels and the short-term rentals, and it's like, we need more places for the tourism, just the tourists to stay, but like, what are the numbers? What is the capacity, the occupancy of Tucson, Williams, Flagstaff? Opportunities to communicate on that, because that will help with future planning and development and decisions. I think it'd be really cool to have a yearly. Oh, I love. Yeah. Exactly. Bring my green bean casserole.
Any other?
Yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Maria. Jim, it's your turn. If you're on the phone and you can unmute it, and visit with us about the goals section. You have maybe some input for the goals. And your phone is on mute.
He's on.
Oh, you're on the computer. Oh, he jumped off. Okay. He's back on his computer, so he'd have to sign off and call back in. All right, let's keep it on.
You could write something in the chat if you see that picture.
Chat, right?
Okay. I don't have anything else.
You don't? Okay, let's see. Did something just happen there?
I just said Jim chat.
Mike, any adjustments or refinements? Let's see if we can give Jim just a second. We'll go ahead and let's see, just a second. He did not, so.
He knows how to put his hand up, so he was doing that before.
Okay, well, I think that we are going to say that Jim is good with the goals and that if he's not, he can send those some comments into you when he sends the rest of the materials. Well, I don't think I have to comment on anything in particular. I wanted to just bring to light one more time that on the affordable housing, one of the things that's going to be really interesting over time is the number of retirement folks at age 65 or older who are going to start retiring with mortgages. And they are going to be in Coconino County as well. And you're going to see, I think, a rise in that. It doesn't seem like a statistic that's often talked about. But it's not just going to be exporting our kids, but it's also going to be clearly that we're going to run into that at some point in time during the life of this conference. But may not have any relevance to planning and zoning directly, but at the same time, it's just part of that bigger mix that you're kind of going to get it on both ends. So, okay. Well, if that's it for everybody and you're good here, we're going to slide over here and see if there's public comment. Take that for a moment and we'll move on.
Can I make one quick comment about the transfer of development right? Idea that is in our current comments plan, but it wasn't written in a way that really tied it back to the ranching. So we did research. There is state statute does allow transfer of development right between municipalities. So it would take work to put together intergovernmental agreements, ordinances, but there's a possibility then where development rights could be transferred from ranch lands to receiving areas in the municipalities of the cities. It's a very real possibility. It takes work. There's a lot of thought that went in behind how that was written, because that could possibly it could solve several issues. I won't get into that, but it could help with what's going on in the density conversations at Flagstaff. Could help support. So we see there are opportunities there just to kind of explain that a little bit further, but statute does allow for that expert.
And it's being successfully done in King County, actually, cities.
Okay, so there you go, a statewide example, and it's been done in many parts of the country.
First, I wanted to comment on that, because I was a paper language, and I tried to craft an ordinance to sit on it years ago. The one that everybody liked the staff, but the city, and the planning and zoning was city council hated it. What it was a matter of right, certain transferred rights, had the right to go next to commercial area. If it was zoned residential, they could instantly have 16 units per acre. If it's affordable housing budget. Because people can't have that, drugs and prostitutes. I mean, people say in open session, drugs and prostitutes live in affordable housing.
Well, we can't require inclusionary zoning anyway, so.
No, the whole point I'm trying to make, they just say you have a matter of rights. So if you take outside the county so many units and maybe 1,000 units, you'll get 100 units in the city. It's not one, you don't have to be one for one. And how you do it, I think you give the right, municipalities, here, I'll give a right to allow facilities next to commercial zones. I would say you would have a lot of them in affordable housing. These come in, what happens, they go through sport activity, you know, $500,000, $1 million in soft costs before they know you can build it. And that's why a lot of them just walk away, they just throw their hands up and leave. And so no, they left because whatever. I've heard the story when I know this, we dropped too much money. I said, well, almost 3 million. 3 different developments saying these property. Over 3 million was off costs. And each one thought he could get it over the goal line. And he did.
I think you're the first volunteer to help raise
All right, folks, thank you for being patient and hanging out with us. Would you introduce yourself?
I'm from Holloway and I'm from Belmont. Actually, nobody ever talks down and right there. I'm not included in any of the math. And that really upsets me because there are people out there and we need services. Which is like we've been talking about. And I know you brought up the subject of nature and native plants. Where we live in Belmont, we have a ton of people going past and walking their dog and riding their bikes and taking their motorbikes out to meadowlands. Okay, but we moved here many years ago, a few years ago. We would walk out there and see the native plants and how pretty they were and enjoy them and see the lilies when they were up there. Since then, they've grown up more communities and more people walked up there and they're bringing up, eating up the invasive plants. And I don't know how you can go about or limit it since, you know, you're saying, hey, let's grow it and let's enjoy our nature. You know, what about walkways that are paved or full of gravel and signs, please stay on the walkway and watch our invasive plants.
I'm Jeff. I'm married to Sue. It's been very interesting listening to you. One thing I haven't heard, but maybe we weren't at the right meeting, is elaborating on what she said. Your infrastructure, you know, it's very easy. A lot of the conversation was around Flagstaff and hooking, for example, Belmont or Munns Park, whatever, tying them to the larger community. I mean, since our roads or county roads are, the power lines are, well, they're APS and getting the infrastructure to expand throughout the county. I thought I heard touched on, and I just want to emphasize it's a good thing to concentrate on. There's more than just the peaks, and it was very interesting to hear multiple comments about, can't we have an industry other than tourism? And then you're coming out with it. So that sounds like it would be nice if there's some kind of concentration on, well, what does tourism do that we want to limit? Okay, so it affects housing. I've been reading in the paper about, people want to restrict short-term rentals and other people want to say, no, that's their property, they can do what they want with it. And there's battle going on if I understand correctly, in our state legislature and so on. Can this plan weigh in on that conversation in some way?
I have another comment I didn't listen to. You keep talking about smaller short-term housing, how you're going to expand it. And I'm going, okay, what about the people who live here that want to buy housing and standalone family units? Why don't we create those, an area for those? So, maybe the short-term housing over here and the families and standalone and duplexes and are over here. I don't know if you can incorporate that number, or if it's even a good idea.
Melissa, is there a way, or anything you all want to jump in on with regard to these comments, or you just not gonna listen?
Well, we generally just listen, but we're happy to jump in if you'd like a little bit of background.
Well, if there was some specific that you felt was key, but otherwise.
Are you referring to having different zones, for instance, for short-term rentals? Is that what your thought was?
Well, that's my thought was, I'm sure there could be other ways to deal with this. Even our apology has got these, cities where there's all sorts of services around. And, people can live within walking distance of what they need.
Yeah, I guess just talk a little bit about, whether or not we can identify a short-term rental zone. That's nothing that statute would right now allow the county to do. I do know, and you guys might have more to say on this, but I know there are some efforts at the state level to change the legislation. So right now, the county is only able to regulate short-term rentals a certain amount, and the rules that we have require registration, but we don't have a way to limit that. To limit somebody from using their home as a short-term rental. But I do, like you said, I think that there are some changes going on at the state level. I don't know what's happening, to be honest. Every year something seems to be different until something goes into effect. We'll pay attention to it then. But do you guys know any more about what might be happening at the state level with short-term rentals?
Just continue pressure, particularly from
Yeah.
from most of the cities that are that the percentage of their single family homes is increasing year after year, and how many of those homes in given cities are those short-term rentals. So we track them. We're allowed to require a permit, we track them. But under state statute right now, if it's a permitted home, you can't limit the amount of time that home is rented, or whether it's right, and you can't limit how many homes anywhere. The only place privately there have been subdivisions who choose to put into their HOA CCRs to limit short-term rental. So that is one place that it gets limited. Otherwise, cities, mostly cities, but I think counties have been joined as well in lobbying for acreage control, being able to limit how many in how many area possibly.
Super. Okay. We want to thank you for your participation this evening. So thank you for being patient. Well, thanks for all of your work.
Thank you for all your work.
It's obvious we all want it.
And we wish Belmont the very best. Belmont comes up every time from now on. Look, everybody, we're going to be not having our meeting next Thursday and moving into to April 3rd.
Yeah.
Correct?
April 3rd, yeah.
Correct. And Jim, I hope you hear that. You may not have been on the phone or some way to hear us at that time, but our next meeting is April 3rd. It is not next Thursday, Jim. And anyway, I know you and I
I'll
talked
send
about making sure that. Okay. Is there anything else? And if not, we're gonna adjourn.
Yeah, is this a good place to ask about dark skies? You know, down in Forest Lakes, we're definitely dark skies. But there's a little bit of lighting that's happening in properties at nighttime. I think it's usually on grounds that who could move monitors, or we really would like to continue to be a dark sky town. Or, you know, incorporated, but is there anybody that goes around and checks to see if we're complying with dark skies? I think we are, from what I read, but
Well, the county has an ordinance that sets out the standards. If there are properties to our compliance, officer can check those, see whether or not they're in compliance with the code. Is that
Yeah,
it?
you can do it. So the zoning ordinance has an entire section on outdoor lighting and it limits how much lighting can be on different properties for different reasons. And you can do a code enforcement request, and we can get your phone number and where online you can submit that. And yeah, our code enforcement folks could come check that to confirm confirm whether or not it meets code.
It might be just awareness.
Yeah.
well, we have a lot of websites that people that come from and don't pay attention to dark skies. Here's how we can keep Forest Lakes dark.
Well, it is a code that applies to Forest Lakes.
Rose?
Yeah, the only thing I want to just kind of say in general terms is, you know, what is the direction of this plan, of our plan that we're doing? I think one of the things we always need to keep in mind is that are we building trust when we're talking about our plan and what we're putting in it? And that's why I think we all have to meet at least once a year. Like you said, there's so much diverseness and there's such a melting pot. But who are we? And I think that's why it's really important that we can come together as the different cultures and determine an identity. Yeah. Happy spring.
That leads Flagstaff out of it, right? What Flagstaff? We get to have our own get together.
Well, Flagstaff determines a lot for everybody else. That's what I've noticed. And I think it's time that we bring everybody else.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All righty, guys.
Thank you.
How about this? We adjourn.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.